Most people, when they start using Salesforce and the word campaigns comes up, or someone talks about the campaign tab in Salesforce, most people automatically assume that campaigns equals mass email distributions. That is, let's put that on the table right at the get-go, and I'm going to burst that bubble right away. From my perspective, yes, Salesforce Campaigns functionality can be used to manage mass email distributions somewhat in a limited fashion. However, the campaigns functionality in Salesforce can be used for way more than just mass email campaigns. So my recommendation for you to get the most out of this session, my recommendation is, for now, for the most part, let's make believe there is no such thing as mass email distributions, because otherwise we're just going to go down that rabbit hole and not take in the full breadth of all of the other things. I will be touching on how to use it for mass email distributions, but let's really focus on all of the other kinds of things that you can do, whether you're in sales, whether you're in marketing, or even if you're in customer service, what the different things that you can do with the Salesforce Campaigns functionalities. So with that, let's define what is, in my mind, what is Salesforce Campaigns and how can you use the native out-of-the-box Salesforce Campaigns functionality. You can use it to track any type of sales, marketing, or customer service initiative. And that's purposely a very vague and broad word. It's an initiative. An initiative could be things like, if let's say you're in sales, you want to reach out to dormant customers, to people who have not purchased your products in the last 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is. So you want to reach out to them, a dormant customer campaign. And again, for now, let's make believe there is no such thing as mass email distribution. So
Hey, David.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. If this will help, and I'm bringing this to you I've just recently become a Salesforce administrator, but I was a marketing manager before. So I think that this will help, these examples. We use campaigns when we meet people at conferences and we give them a brochure.
Yep.
We recently had a campaign where we had a team write handwritten letters, and we're a professional services firm, so I don't mean those letters you get in your mail, your junk mail stuff, but this was
Yep.
a handwritten letter with a book on a topic that we thought these people, a very small targeted group, only about 50 people, that they would be interested in. We've used campaigns to track people who attend our webinars. So there's so many different ways that you can use campaigns. We have a partner sort of relationship with something like an agency, and we meet and make relationships through introductions, more or less, and all sorts of fathoms. And that team wanted to know, how can we track how much business we're getting out of that agency, so we can see if in a year from now it's worth continuing the relationship. So we said, let's use a campaign, and we'll attach everyone we meet because of this relationship, whatever the meeting is, whatever that looks like, it doesn't matter. There's no scope for it even. And then a year from now, we'll know everything that came from that bigger agency relationship. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, Christine, thank you. Those are actually great examples. So thank you so much for helping to make it real and to give a little bit of validation to what I'm talking to. 100%. So as Christine mentioned, it could be a calling campaign. It could be something that we're sending via the United States Postal Service or UPS or FedEx. It could be something like tracking the people who stopped by our booth at a trade show. It could be the people that we called, telling them that we're going to be at a local trade show, and then later following up by tracking who from those people that we invited, who of them actually stopped by the booth, and then following up with those that we invited that did not stop by the booth. So it could be, as I mentioned before, we could be looking at attributes of the existing database in order to identify those dormant customers and put them into a campaign where, again, for now, we're completely ignoring email. We're calling them, or maybe we're even visiting them on site. We've got people out in the field that are visiting them on site, checking in with them to see how things are going. Maybe we're reaching out to people who have recently purchased product A and to do a cross-sell initiative by reaching out to them and calling them to introduce them to product B. Or maybe I talked about customer service before, so you might be wondering, how on earth can we leverage customer service from a campaigns perspective? Let's make believe we have a product or service, and over time, customers have sort of been complaining about a particular feature that has been lacking in our product or service. And we've been tracking those as cases in Salesforce. The customer service team has been the team that has been hearing this consistently loud and clear from customers, that they're complaining the fact that we don't have this particular feature or service or product offering. Well, as soon as we come out with that service or product offering, guess what? Let's track all of those people associated to those cases flagged as having been related to that particular issue and include them in this campaign where, again, we're temporarily bypassing mass email. We're calling them, or we're visiting them, or we're sending them postcards in the mail, introducing them to the fact that we have now addressed that pain point. We heard them loud and clear. We're now addressing that pain point that they've recently shared with us. So campaigns can be used for a lot of different things. Campaigns can also be used, by the way, to track things where we're not even including a particular person in the campaign. Let's say we're taking out radio ads. We're taking out ads in magazines or websites, and we're using the campaign functionality to simply track which ads did we place in which publications or with which stations. They ran over how much of a period of time, who was the primary contact that we worked with at that radio station or the publication or the website in order to purchase that ad. What are the phone calls, the meetings, the to-dos that we have to work on, and the graphics that we use to actually place that ad, tracking all of that, including the expenses, by the way, tracking all of that in the campaign's functionality. So with that being said, I'm sort of going to let the dust settle a little bit and ask you guys if you have any questions about anything that I just talked about. For some of you, I probably just made your head spin a little bit because most of you were probably thinking that it's mostly associated with mass emails. And then I'll go ahead and I'll cover that gap of how can campaign functionality be used with mass emails, and what is the limited functionality that Salesforce gives out of the box associated with mass email distribution.
David.
So yes, Barbara, go ahead.
Yes. So one of the issues that I find using campaigns is that tracking information within campaigns becomes a very manual input, like changing the statuses or changing, the information that you collect. It just seems very manually driven. And it doesn't seem like it's conducive to automation. It seems like the campaign member object doesn't behave like other objects. The campaign object itself doesn't behave like other objects. And so automating how to track how different records, statuses, or information, it just doesn't seem like it's something that can be scaled.
So Barbara, thank you for bringing that up. You actually brought up a really good topic that I wanted to cover anyway. And your point is very well taken, and is the very common perception, and I'll even say observation, that a lot of people have with regard to campaign members. For those of you who are not familiar with what we're talking about, I've got my handy dandy little whiteboard so I can draw a little bit. Let's describe what Barbara is talking about, and then what are some of the nuances. We'll talk about the specific pain point that Barbara is calling out and how I perceive it, and how I totally get what Barbara's saying, but I don't perceive it as much of a problem as Barbara's describing, and we can absolutely dive into it deeper. So what we have over here in Salesforce, we have the campaign, and I'm going to make sure you can see it in a moment. We have the campaign record in Salesforce. And with the Salesforce campaign, we actually have statuses. So what is the status of the campaign? Let's say the campaign is the upcoming trade show. The trade show, let's say we're let's call it a webinar. The trade show, right now in the world of coronavirus, it's hard for any of us to really embrace trade shows anymore. So let's make believe it's a webinar. And let's make believe the campaign is even me inviting you guys to this event. So the campaign status, the status would be, now generally speaking, the statuses for campaigns are going to be very, very few. So we're going to have something like maybe planned, active, closed, and that's really it. So we want to track just the bare bones basics, the milestones of that the campaign as a whole. So let's say we'll have statuses of, I'm going to put it over here, planned, active or open, closed. Okay, everyone with me so far? Anyone have any questions on that? Okay, so with the campaign, in order to add people into the campaign, so in Salesforce, as I'm sure most of you know, the people in Salesforce are either leads or contacts. And we can add both leads and contacts into a campaign. And the way we add leads or contacts into a campaign is through an object, and standard out-of-the-box object called campaign members. And what that campaign members is, basically, it's related, it's like a child object to campaigns. And what it is basically a lookup. So in each campaign member record is a lookup to either a lead or a contact. So you could have in any one campaign, you could have hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of campaign members. They could be both, you can have 2,000 leads, 50,000 contacts, all in the same one campaign. Each of them are listed as a campaign member. Everyone with me so far?
Yeah.
Anyone have any questions on what I described so far? Okay. Campaign members have their own status. So anytime you are creating a campaign, and by the way, I have some of my own pet peeves with the standard out-of-the-box way that Salesforce, the default settings for campaign member statuses. So we'll get to that soon. I'll air my grievances a little bit later. So for campaign members, we also have statuses. So now you might be wondering, well, what the heck is the status for the campaign member, and how is that different from the status of the campaign? Again, the campaign, we're keeping with the example, the campaign is like a webinar. So for the campaign, we have statuses of like planned, active, closed. It's planned when I'm still planning out who do I want to invite, what day is it going to be, what topics is it going to be on, what time slot is it going to be, did I even set up the Zoom meeting yet, am I going to have any guest participants? Those would all indicate that it's planned. Active means I'm actively inviting people, I'm putting it on social media, we're actually doing things like even the status we're in right now of actually doing the webinar, that's all active. After the fact, after I feel like I am completely done with this initiative, this project of this particular webinar, that's when this particular campaign is going to be in a status of closed. So what is the status on the campaign member? The status on the, you must, please do yourself a favor. You must think about the status of the campaign member as the milestones. The status should always, status on a lead, status on or stage on an opportunity, status on cases, status should always, always represent the milestones of progress that you are tracking as it relates to that thing. Here the thing is the contact or the lead, that thing or person in the campaign. So let's go back to the example that we're doing right now of a webinar. And so what would the statuses be for the campaign members? The status, first status, my best practice, my advice to you, if you take anything away from this session, take this one thing that I'm about to say. The default status for every single, I should say 99.9% of the campaigns that you do, the default status for campaign members should always be the following: added to campaign. You create a status called added to campaign. That should always be the default status. What am I talking about? So let's make believe I'm sitting and I'm planning out this particular webinar. and I have the date and I have the topic and I have all that. And now I'm going through my database to figure out, okay, who is it that I want to invite to this webinar? By going through the system and seeing here are it's all of the following contacts, it's all of the following leads. I want to add them to the campaign. As soon as I include them in the campaign, so they will immediately be a campaign member reflected for each individual. The status, nothing happened with them yet. All I did so far was identify these are the people that I want to include. I have not yet taken any proactive action to let them know that I've included them in the campaign. Add it to campaign. That's when we are formulating our list. That's when we are formulating our distribution list. Here are the people that we want to interact with as it relates to this initiative. So the first status would be, over here again, the first status would be added to campaign. Right now, just to keep it brief, I'm just going to write the word added. What would the second status be? Well, if in this case, the status would be, the next step would be, I'm actually inviting them. So it would be invited. And in this case, it might in fact be a mass email distribution. However, I can also invite people by talking to them in person. I could also invite people by text messaging them. I can also invite people by messaging them through LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram. I could also be including people by, they are calling me and they're calling me about something completely unrelated, and during the course of the conversation say, hey, by the way, I'm doing this webinar, would you be interested in joining? So the next status that I would include would be invited. That means some proactive step was made to let them know that they are welcome to join this particular initiative. So let's go back over here to the whiteboard, and under added, I have my next status is invited. Now, after invited for this type of a use case, well, if I have some RSVP mechanism, like for this particular webinar, I asked everyone to register in advance. So there is an RSVP mechanism. So the next status I might have over here after invited is basically a confirmation. Yes, meaning they've actually RSVP'd. They've indicated in some way, it didn't have to be by email, didn't have to be through a landing page. It might have been, let's say verbally, they said, yeah, I plan on coming, just text me the link. So some mechanism for them to actually tell me yes.
Dave,
right?
Dave,
Yes. Go ahead,
so I want
Kevin.
to stop you right there.
Yep.
So all of these statuses, are you manually changing them as the person progresses down the campaign?
So depending on the tools that I'm using, depending on the type of campaign, they could either be automated or they could be manually done. In other words, if I'm using tools like the RSVP mechanism that I'm using, if it integrates directly with Salesforce, that is automatically changing the person's status to RSVP yes. The fact that I sent the email out, if the mechanism, the tool that I'm using integrates with Salesforce and how well it integrates with Salesforce, then that is automatically changing the status, the campaign member status from added to campaign, switching it to invited.
Can you, in part of this process, if you have time, can you sort of talk about the tools and things like that? Because that would be really interesting.
That would really depend on which tools people are using. So native out-of-the-box Salesforce functionality, like there are no tools. Like in other words, Salesforce out-of-the-box, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, does not include, not everyone is using Pardot, not everyone is using Marketing Cloud, right? So those are the tools that have the best, the most powerful integrations. There are other tools like MailChimp that doesn't have as powerful of an integration. So it can't necessarily do that automation. But if you're using something like, let's say, HubSpot, Marketo, or Constant Contact, MailChimp, depending on which tool, depending on the APIs that they have available, depending on which tool you're using for the, not only the email distribution, but also the RSVP mechanism. So depending on which tool you're using, you could either use a native integration or you could use a tool like Zapier or Workato, and there are many other tools like that, to automatically go ahead and find that corresponding person in Salesforce, find that campaign member, and update that campaign member status.
Currently, we have Pardot, and so we're building that out where it'll just feed all that over to Salesforce. That's what it'll ultimately look like. We also use GoToWebinar, which integrates really nicely. And we were actually integrating, or not integrating, but migrating onto Salesforce as a firm about a year before a marketing team decided, oh, we need to get on board and switch off on Marketo, go to Pardot. Now's the time for those reasons. But I worked for another company some years ago, back around 2014, 2015, Fortune company that used Salesforce, and they had a little, I don't want to say a little, but they had a Salesforce team, several people administrating, and they would work with us in marketing, take our list and do mass uploads. So that's another way, even if you don't have, you know, the money to spend on the other parts of this, you know, you can still do mass
Through like a
upload just to
data
change.
upload.
Yeah,
Yep.
just to change the status. Like, these are the people that attended, you know, 100 of them, because you don't want to go in and manually have to change 100
To
people.
Christine's point, a lot of times it's not necessarily a webinar. Let's say something like the trade show, right?
Yeah.
And you want to track, let's say, the people who stop by the booth. And very often, at the trade show, we have, you know, when exhibitors are given a small little scanner and you're scanning a badge. And at the end of the event, what you're getting in the end is a CSV file of the people that you actually scanned. So there is no way to bulk automate the campaign member status. However, to Christine's point, you're getting a CSV file, and that hopefully that CSV file has an email address that hopefully you can use as a unique identifier for the people that are already in your system, where by doing the data upload, you can bulk update those campaign member statuses to, segueing back to where I was before. So we have afterwards the campaign member statuses added, invited, yes, they RSVP, yes, that they plan on attending, and then actually tracking those people that actually did attend. So the next status in this type of use case, this type of initiative would be attended, those people that actually attended.
Okay, let me break here, ask a question.
Yep.
Would you not also have a separate track or branching out for those who RSVP no, so you don't
That was the next
invite?
Well, you might want to re-invite them anyway, but you want to track that anyway.
Right.
So then you would have another one, which is no-show. Now, by the way, what is no-show? After the event already happens, and you have all of those that attended, you go back and you do a query in that campaign to find all the campaign members that have the status of yes. In other words, they were not yet changed to added to campaign. You've already captured everyone who attended the event, who stopped by the trade show, who stopped by the booth, who actually attended the webinar. And then you have those people that are still marked as yes. That means that they were a no-show. So you can bulk update all of those to flag them as no-shows. This way you will know 2 months later, 6 months later, 4 years later, that particular event, Fred Flintstone said he would show up, but he did not show up. He was a no-show. So then you can see with a track record, when you're looking at that person's record over time, that most of the time they are actually RSVPing, but they typically do not show up. So you can see that. And then this way, anyone on the team can also have that conversation, speak intelligently when they're on the phone with that customer or prospect. And they say, yeah, what, do you have that information? You have that new feature? Yeah, it looks like it was on a webinar that you RSVP'd for, but you didn't show up. It was last Thursday. You can speak intelligently about it because you have all of that information. So yes, to Jim's point, you have another one, which is no-show. Now, by the way, depending on the type of initiative, depending on, for many organizations, there is no follow-up after that. For some organizations, there is additional follow-up. There are a couple of other steps that will happen for the people who actually attended, maybe to have some type of follow-up, some type of confirmation. Maybe there's a sales call. Maybe there's an on-site visit. Maybe there's a product demo trial that's getting initiated. So then depending on how that is being structured, you have options. You can either continue to build out the campaign member statuses for the campaign members to build it out even longer, or alternatively, you can then move over to create a child campaign. So this goes into a whole other topic, a best practice, highly underutilized feature in Salesforce. Parent and child campaigns. You can create a hierarchy structure where you can have, let's say the parent campaign could be something like reaching out to dormant customers. And you can have multiple child or children campaigns that fall underneath it. You could have multiple webinars, you could have on-site visits, you could have many different things that happen as child campaigns under that broader category of dormant customer outreach. You could also have many generations going out further of child campaigns. So for this one particular, let's say webinar campaign, I could have one or multiple child campaigns after that, let's say extending a free trial or product sample or something like that. So you can create it as a separate campaign with its own statuses. You would then go back into the initial campaign, segment out which people from this first campaign do you want to include in that child campaign, so you can bulk include them. And then this way you're further refining the list as needed, depending on the type of initiative that you're trying to do. So I'm going to pause and ask if anyone has any questions, and then let's go back and circle totally back to Barbara's question. And I realize it's 36 minutes after the hour, and I have yet to even share my screen to show you anything live in Salesforce. So I'm going to go back to Barbara's question, and that's where I'm going to share my screen and show some of the challenges that Barbara talked about bulk updating the campaign member statuses in Salesforce. Anyone have any questions on anything I talked about so far? No?
Hey, David.
Yes.
It's Oliver. How you doing?
Hey, Oliver. It's great to see you.
You too.
Thanks.
You've just been talking about sending emails and getting responses in a marketing type relationship where you expect people to do things. What if the people you expect to do things, and this actually came up on the chat window, I'm just parroting it back.
It's okay. I haven't had a chance to read it through while I'm talking.
So you're creating a campaign of people for Bob, the salesperson, to contact. And so, and I'm selfishly asking this question, how do you implement a process around a campaign for a salesperson?
Okay. It's an excellent, excellent question. Let's first touch on Barbara's question, and then we'll segue directly back, because we'll also be sharing the screen at the same time, segue back to that question of how do I find my people, the people that I care about that are in this campaign. So anything else before I start sharing my screen?
I'm talking about getting salespeople to take action on the campaign. Not that the campaign exists because it could be ignored, but to get Bob, the salesperson, to go after 50 people who are in a campaign.
So that's actually a broader topic that I would say ties back to, I'll put it under the category of adoption. And that's where I personally have found that probably the biggest incentivizer is one of two things. Either, well, three things. It's your job, do it, or there's the door. The second one is public shaming. So having metrics on the home screen in Salesforce, the wall of shame. Here are all of your contacts that don't have an email address or job title populated. Here are all of your contacts that were in this campaign that are still sitting in the status of uninvited, or added to campaign. You still haven't invited them yet, or whatever it might be. And the third one is by teaching them what's in it for them. Dude, you want to make your numbers? Like, what the hell? I'm setting you up for all this. I'm doing all of this work, and you're not following up. Like, I don't understand. So that's how I see it. And that's the same principles to me would apply with data quality, with logging into Salesforce, with updating their pipeline, with following up with the leads assigned to them. Yeah, totally. All right, I'm going to share my screen, and let's go into, this is the screen that I'm sharing, and let's go into this one. So I actually have two different orgs open because there's a couple of different things that I want to be able to show you guys. Let's move this out of the way. I've got a distraction on the screen. All right, so what we're going to do is first, let me show you, let's go into any campaign. I have a bunch of fictitious data over here. Let's go into this campaign. I don't have any contacts in here. That's really not a good one. Let's go here. You'll see I have a whole lot of stuff. Okay, so here I could see the campaign members. Now, if you want to update members in bulk, there are a couple of different ways to do this. If I'm working, you don't have to be within the campaign screen. You don't have to be stuck within this one particular screen that I'm in. But if you happen to be in the screen, you see here, I can click view all, so I can see a larger number. I can go ahead and segment these people by various criteria. If let's say I want to, here I have all of these people that are in the category, in the campaign member status of added to campaign. I'm simply clicking on shift on my keyboard. I'm selecting all of these individuals. In theory, I could, I could cherry pick, or I could choose every single one of them, whatever I want. So let's go ahead and just randomly click on a couple of other people. And then I can see that there's a button over here on the top where it says update status. I click on that status and it's showing me the individual statuses that are available for this particular campaign. So here you can see this particular one, I only have 3 statuses: added to campaign, touched, and responded. So here I'll just choose touched, I'll hit save, and boom, I just updated all of those 17 people with that new status. Done. Now, there are a couple of other ways that I could have done this. Let's make believe, let's go to, I've got a fictitious record over here for George Clooney. Let's find him. And let's see some of the campaigns that he's affiliated with. And so as I'm talking to George Clooney, let's say he's on, hopefully he's got some campaign over here. Here, added to campaign. So there's an upcoming trade show in New York City at the Javits Center, and I can see that he's got the status of added to campaign, meaning internally we made the decision to include him in the invite. However, an invite did not yet go out. So since I happen to be talking to him, he called me, let's say, to find out the status of his deal or talk about the invoice or whatever it is. And I can say, hey, by the way, I see that you haven't yet been invited. We've got a trade show coming up at the Javits Center. Do you think you'll be able to attend? It's, yes, absolutely. What is the date? What is the location? Blah, blah, blah. All I have to do is go over here, click on this little caret icon, click on edit, and I can go here and I can update the status to, and by the way, you can see over here, we have different statuses for the different type of campaign that we're selecting. So I could, I'm sorry, I meant to click invited, and I can go here and I can hit save, and boom, I just updated his campaign member status for that particular campaign. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. First of all, anyone have any questions on anything that I just showed? And then let's drill back to Barbara's pain point of it's still manual.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so the question I have is, hi, good to see you again. It's kind of strange that you would be able to invite the person, but what if they, forgot about their invitation? So you would still kind of want them to go through the system to get the invitation, but you just tell them, well, the invitation's on the way. If you could, like, say, contacted the person, about it, but they haven't gotten it yet because you want them to still get the email.
Okay, so for, that's a great point, Michelle. So for each type of initiative that we have going on, and depending on the business practices for the organization, that will dictate whether any email goes out. That will dictate the type of campaign that it is. So in other words, I still, I might flag him as invited in the campaign member status, and at the same time, I could, because the email, I could have an invite that's in Salesforce as a template email. So if he says, or I was trained that regardless of if you're doing a verbal invite, you still need to send an email. I could go right over here on the lower portion of the screen. I can click over here where it says email. I can go here and I can choose a template of an invite, insert a template. I can go ahead and I can choose that particular invite, and I can insert it in, and this could be his invite to the actual event. So that can still happen regardless. So if that's the case, if we're expecting those verbal invites and we still want to have a manual email go out, that can still be done regardless. That all depends on the needs of the business practices, and the resources that the company wants to dedicate to the various initiatives.
And
keep in mind, this could have been also a campaign, not like inviting to a webinar. This could have been a campaign of me and everyone on my team. Let's say I'm in sales. Me and everyone on my team figuring out who should be getting the season's greeting postcard versus the season's greeting mug that's going to go out in December.
Right. The other thing, of course, is this is more in the weeds. We won't go too deeply, but process automation, you can have it set up that everybody who gets an invite a couple days before they get the follow-up email reminder. And,
Right.
and that's kind of a, like I said, going into the weeds back end, but there's methods to get that set up so that if they're on the status of invite, they do get something to keep on reminding them.
Yes, and since you brought it up, email limits, let's dive a little bit deeper into some of the limits. This is the link I'm looking for. So Salesforce out of the box. In other words, if you have Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, you don't have Pardot, you don't have Marketing Cloud. There are some very serious limits that Salesforce purposely puts out there. They're very serious limits to sending out mass emails. Salesforce does not want you or want any of us using Salesforce, just Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, etc., as a mass email tool. Why? They want us to purchase Pardot or Marketing Cloud. So there are some limits over here. Now, aside from the fact that, let's ignore even these limits, native out-of-the-box Salesforce functionality makes it incredibly difficult to be compliant with GDPR and CAN spam, even if these numbers were 10 times higher than what they are published on this site. So there are some very serious functional limitations that we'll find in Sales Cloud and Service Cloud when it comes to sending out mass emails. But you can see over here that you can send a maximum of 5,000 external emails per day per org. Now, some of you might be working in very small orgs that only have 2,000 contacts. But there are many people that are working in very large companies with hundreds of thousands of contacts and leads in there. 5,000 external emails can go out per day per org, which means that if I say, hey, I only care to send out, I only have 5,000, I'll trim my list to only invite 5,000 people to be able to send out these emails. If I do that, 5 minutes later, someone in customer service wants to go ahead to this George Clooney record and send an email right here from Salesforce, they won't be able to do it because that's 5,001. We've reached the limit. It's across the entire organization. That's a very serious limitation. Anyone have any questions on that? Okay. So, Barbara, did I cover your question topic on, I didn't mean to be so long-winded about it, on the mass emails. I'm sorry, on the manual updating of campaign member statuses.
Yeah, it's one of the issues that we found is that not everybody, not all our clients are like admins, and so doing like updating a bunch of statuses at one time using like data loader or something like that, it's just not something that they want to do.
Right. I would teach them, any end user that has access to the campaign and the campaign members should be able to do exactly this right over here and select which contacts and select update status and update them.
Right, but you can only do like, isn't it like 50 at a time, or?
How are they calling 70 people at a time?
No, it's mostly about sending emails, like.
Then it ought to be done as a bulk email, as a bulk data load.
Yeah, right. Which they have a tough time using.
Right. So we need someone on the team who's able to do that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're sending out 500 or 2,000, or even if it's 50 emails, that should be a data load where you're updating all of those people in that campaign to indicate that the email went out.
Right.
Now, by the way, okay, so let's dive into the mass email a little bit further. Let's make believe for a minute you're not using, for those of you who are not using, Marketing Cloud or Pardot. If you're using any other type of mass email system like MailChimp, Constant Contact, HubSpot, Marketo, the best practice would be as follows. You would have statuses in here if this were an email campaign. Let's go back to the campaign member statuses that I showed you earlier I would have over here sent, in other words, to indicate who did we actually send the email to, because by the way, we're doing that by having, instead of because you're not always inviting. It could be, you know, we're just sending them an email. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're managing well through the whole coronavirus situation. We're just sending them something. There's no real response that we're expecting back, but we're maybe providing links in the email for additional resources that we're providing to them. So we want to have over here added. The next one we would want to have is sent. And by doing that, initially, if we're sending to everyone that's on the list with the status of added, we're sending them that email. We're bulk updating all of those people to mark them as sent, which means that if 5 minutes later someone else adds 3 more people to that campaign, they will get added with the status of added to campaign. Most of the people will be marked with the status of sent. However, we're going to have some people that are going to be in our wave 2 follow-up distribution, if there is a wave 2 distribution. Or at the very least, it'll be an indicator to those people who were the slowpokes on the team of, yeah, email went out on Tuesday at 9 a.m. I don't care that you did it just now. Too bad. It's too late. It's going to just sit there forever and add it to campaign. We're not doing a wave 2 distribution. But after you're doing that wave 2 distribution, again, if you're using MailChimp, Constant Contact, or anything else, the best practice would be, and again, none of those tools really have a robust integration with Salesforce, and it's not the fault of those tools. It's Salesforce that turned off those APIs so that Pardot and Marketing Cloud are the superior, the better integrated products. So after, let's say you're using a tool like MailChimp, and you're doing the email distribution, the best practice would be 24, 48 hours after you do that email distribution through MailChimp, you pull an extract from MailChimp. And you want to see all of those that hard bounced. Hard bounce means that the email address was invalid. You want to know all of those that soft bounce. Soft bounce means the email address was valid. However, the system was not able to accept your incoming email. That's a soft bounce. So you want to be able to track your hard bounces. You want to track your soft bounces because you're going to have different follow-ups. For the hard bounces, you want to assign those back to the team members to basically let them know, dude, you've got an invalid email address. Is that person no longer working there? Is there a typo in the email address? You can figure it out before we do our next email distribution. Then if you also want to track who actually opened the emails, you want to track who clicked on the emails, go back to your campaign member statuses, and you're going to have over here added, sent, hard bounce, soft bounce. You're also going to have opened, clicked. Now keep in mind, open and clicked, one sort of cancels out the other. If they click, that means they opened the email too, right? So they are in fact milestones of progress showing how we're doing with that email distribution. Now, the reason why I say 24 to 48 hours later, don't bother doing anything after that, because most of the people, how often are any of you or any of us looking at emails that hit our inbox and are still unread 3 days later to actually read it? Yes, it happens sometimes, but it's really rare. The better metrics that you're going to have is really going to be within 24 to 48 hours later. So you can go ahead and pull an extract from those external systems that you're using for the mass email distribution. You do a data load back into Salesforce in order to update the campaign member statuses in order to show those people, the people on your team, here's the follow-up metrics of what happened. Good so far? Anyone have any questions? I'm not able to keep track of what's going on in the chat.
Dave,
in the chat, but it should be looking. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
So can you sort of show us how you add people to a campaign?
Yes, absolutely. So the campaign itself, I also, if some of you can stay after the top of the hour, like I really want to show you campaign influence. It's really, I don't need to spend that much time on it, but I think it's a big piece that I should show you. Let's talk about how to add people to a campaign. You can add people to a campaign in a couple of different ways. The first way is on a onesie, twosie effort, cherry picking. So let's go to like randomly click on here. I've got my fictitious George Washington record. And as I'm looking at George Washington, I realize, oh man, we need to invite him to that, hold on, let's see what campaigns I have here for him. I don't have him on that Javits Center trade show campaign. I really should include him. All I have to do is go here, click add to campaign. I can go here and I can search for any campaign. So I just start typing in Javits. It'll find that appropriate campaign. I hit next, and it's going to ask me the status right? So I might have had a default status of invited, so I can choose what is the appropriate status for him. Maybe the status is simply added to campaign. I'm not actually inviting him yet. I didn't talk to him, but on the flip side, I might have actually spoken with him and invited him at the same time. So I just added him with that status as his status for that campaign. So individually, the first method, there are several methods. First method, individually selecting people and adding them to the campaign. The second method is through a list view. So what do I mean by list view? Let's go to any list view for leads or contacts. So here I just happen to be on a random list view for all open leads starting with the letter L in New York, and it really does not matter which list view I'm looking at. I could choose any list view that's available to me. I can go ahead and I can simply click right here at the very top to select everyone. Or like I showed before, I can go here and I can just randomly click on whichever people I want. So let's go ahead and I'll hold down Shift on my keyboard, select all of these 27 people. I've got a button right here on the upper right-hand portion, Add to Campaign. I click on that. I can select that Javits Center campaign. I can select which status I'm including them with. I go here and I hit submit, and boom, those people were added to the campaign. By the way, this is showing me that only 3 of them were not in the campaign before. So most of those people were already within that campaign. If I go to contacts, I could do the exact same thing. So here again, I could look at any list of contacts, and I've got that same button over here. So I can go ahead, again, I could choose whichever people I want or all of them. Click here, add to campaign, choose which campaign, choose which status, hit submit, and boom, I just added them into the campaign. So the first way is by individually choosing the individual, updating their record to indicate that they should be included in that campaign. The second method is through a list view. The third method is from a report. Any report that includes the object of either lead or contacts will have a button just like this one where it says add to campaign. So right now on the fly, I'm just going to create a brand new report. I'm going to click new report. I'll go here to contacts and accounts. And let's put in some wonky filters over here. So let's just choose let's do all accounts. And let's do create a date of all time. And let's do everyone where the company, oh, come on, company or account name. Account name starts with, let's do something completely random, starts with the letter L. And I'm just going to do a save and run. So go ahead and I run this report, and this report is going to show me that I have a total of 43 contacts that are represented in this particular report. In theory, it could have been 43,000. It does not matter. The functionality is exactly the same. Over here in the upper right-hand side, I go here and I choose Add to Campaign. I could do the exact same thing that I did previously, mark them with whichever status I prefer, and boom, I added them into that campaign. The third way of, the fourth way of adding people into a campaign is through a data load. So basically you have a spreadsheet, you go ahead and you use data loader, or you could use the native data import wizard, and you can add people into the campaign. Whether it's 20 or tens of thousands really does not matter. Any questions? I still need to show you campaign influence. Any questions on anything that I described so far about how to add people into the campaign?
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you at that step 4, what's the best practice to not create duplicate contacts? So you have existing contacts, and then you had some new contacts, like maybe did a trade show, and you have a registration list. Say, what's the best way if you're using the upload feature to not create duplicate contacts?
I would activate the native duplicate management features that Salesforce has, and by doing that, you would get rejection notices for each of those that the system flagged as a duplicate. it would flag it as a duplicate based on whichever rules and criteria, whichever logic you implement with the duplicate management rules.
Okay, so if you upload the list of 50, 25 will come back in a rejection email.
Yep, absolutely.
Now so then you have to re-upload this again as leads, the second list?
No, you might be searching for those existing records. You're not importing them. You might be searching for those existing records, simply adding them into the campaign. You're not adding new contact or lead records. You're simply finding those existing records and then adding them into the campaign.
So, but the ones that come back as a rejection. So if I'm running 50 and 25 were existing contacts and 25 were new, is it going to parcel it out by leads and contacts, or is it just going to say, no, these are not existing contacts?
It'll show you based on the individual records. It could be a combination of both leads and contacts.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, my pleasure.
Dave?
Yeah.
Have you ever used a process builder to, somehow you flag the records and contacts and leads, and then use the process builder to create the campaign records for you instead of doing it manually?
Yes, you can absolutely do that. So the best practice for doing that is if you have like an evergreen campaign. In other words, like let's say you have one campaign that's all for all tier 1 customers. And for all tier 1 customers, maybe we're treating them with white gloves, and we're inviting them to all different kinds of events. So we have one like parent campaign where all of the tier 1 customers are in there. So based on various criteria of how are we defining what are tier 1 customers, they have opportunities over a certain dollar amount within a certain period of time, then automatically add either all of the contacts from that account or specific contacts from that account into the campaign. So we're flagging them as it were, or updating the attributes on either the contact or the account to flag them as tier 1, then adding them into that existing campaign. So yes, that can absolutely be done.
And have you experienced any issues of trying to do that in a process builder, or do you need to go to Flow, a program, to do it?
Depending on what attributes, what automation you're trying to do, you could do either one. It really depends on the details of what you want to implement.
Thanks.
What kind of automation you're looking to do. So like the example that I gave before, where if that account is flagged as a tier 1, add all of the contacts, regardless of whether or not we've had interactions with them. Every single contact that we know of, add them into the campaign. That would be a flow. You can't do that with Process Builder. To find all of those child records and include them in the campaign.
That's exactly what I was wanting to know. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
My pleasure. All right, so let's go back, because I definitely need to show you guys about campaign influence. So when we look back at a campaign, we can see over here that in this section on my screen right now, it's in the section called additional information. We have high-level summary of the people that were included in the campaign. I could see over here how many contacts are in the campaign, how many leads are in this campaign. No one manually updated any of this information. As a matter of fact, if I go over here and I click on the edit button, these fields are not even editable to me. See that? These are not even editable to me. These are automatically calculated by Salesforce. Now we also have, Salesforce gives out of the box functionality. It needs to be set up appropriately, but Salesforce gives functionality allowing us to track the ROI, to track the opportunities that are linked to that campaign. So many campaigns we're not necessarily connected to driving for the creation of opportunities. However, many times we do in fact want to link up that campaign. Let's say we're providing a discount for a certain period of time. We're providing a trial, a sample trial or something, and then leading that up to, upon expiration, gearing them towards purchasing the full-blown product. So those could be some examples where we are expected to generate opportunities, and we want to link them to the campaign. So what I'm going to do over here is, so I'm showing you where we have over here some fields called like value of the opportunities in the campaign. We also have right over here, how many opportunities are in the campaign, how many opportunities were won in the campaign. I'm going to show you now, switching over to this org where I have it enabled. By the way, this org is like really, really old, and I can't enable this functionality in this org. So I have this particular org over here, and we can see for this campaign, this particular campaign, I didn't even bother including any campaign members. Don't worry about that. As a matter of fact, let's use this as an opportunity to sort of understand that linking opportunities to a campaign is completely separate and independent from having people in the campaign. So the people that we invited in the campaign may or may not be associated even to those opportunities. We could have a campaign, in theory, we could have a campaign which is basically just a landing page out there with a discount code. We don't even know the contacts yet. We're simply promoting this landing page, this discount code, and as people are signing up, that's how they are automatically getting included as campaign members. And that's how we're automatically tracking not only the existence of that opportunity, but linking that opportunity back to this campaign. So in theory, we could be starting a campaign with really no campaign members and no opportunities, and all of that is being pushed through integrations. So over here, we could see in this particular campaign, there is one opportunity that is associated with it. So we could see here this individual singular, I should say, opportunity is listed here. And we could see over here down below, we have in the summary, it's showing us the number of opportunities in the campaign is 1, and the value of the opportunity is 35,000. Let's go over here and let's pick any random opportunity, and I'm going to show you how we're going to sort of simulate on the sales rep. I'm working on a particular opportunity. I want to associate that opportunity back to the campaign and how we can see full circle how all of this works. Let's go to this. I'm just randomly clicking on any opportunity over here, and I can see this opportunity is for $125,000. And I see here under campaign influence, there is nothing appearing. This is where I want to link this particular opportunity to a campaign. So let's go over here where it says new. I'm clicking new under campaign influence. By the way, there is a couple of steps that the admin needs to take in order to enable some of these features. There's also out of the box a mechanism that you can leverage in order to automate the linking between opportunities and campaigns. I'm not diving into any of that right now. You can find all of that in the Salesforce help articles. If you want, I could share with you the links for it. It's really not that big of a deal. It's not rocket science, but I want to show you, breathe some life into how this works. So I'm going to go over here where it says campaign, and I'm going to click on this particular campaign. I don't even remember the names of the campaigns that I have in this org. And if I want to associate an individual to this campaign, so let's say it's the person that I'm talking to. Let's see if there's a Sarah in this database. Okay, let's pick Sarah Smith. Sarah is the person who's actually telling me she heard the radio ad. She's the one who filled out the landing page, whatever it is, to get the discount code to make the purchase. It was the radio ad that inspired her to call us to get this deal to happen. So I want to go here and I want to indicate that this opportunity and Sarah is linked to not only the opportunity, but also to the campaign. So over here, we have this field called influence. This is really important. So in theory, there could be not one, but there could be multiple campaigns that had some influence for that were the catalyst for the creation of this opportunity. So in most cases, most people think very simplistically, and it's totally cool. We don't need to make ourselves crazy on it. We can just go here and we can make it 100%. But it could be that in my conversation with Sarah, she's telling me, oh my gosh, I attended your webinar and I stopped by the trade show at the Javits Center and I saw that discount. Once I saw that discount code, man, I was sold. That's it. So in theory, I could go here and I can link this particular, I could say this is 33% attributed to that particular campaign. I could then go ahead and add another campaign over here and put another 33% attribution to that one. I can go and then add the third one. So I can not only associate one opportunity to multiple campaigns as the sales rep, as the person closest to this deal, working with this customer, I can also indicate what level of influence did that particular campaign have on the creation of this opportunity. I'm just going to go back here and just mark it as 100%.
David?
Yes.
Can I ask a very quick question here? And I'm pretty sure this is the case. So when you then split the influence, say a third, and a third across different campaigns, and then you were, say, making a chart that had a dashboard and was comparing the revenue brought in from all of your campaigns, that would appropriately then allocate a third of the revenue for each opportunity?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Watch this. You know what? I'll do it as 10%. I'll leave it as 10%, and let's make sure it got updated. Yeah, it's showing us 10%. Now let's go back into that campaign and let's take a look at some of the numbers. Oh, come on, it didn't refresh automatically. Oh, it's not because it's, yeah, here we go. The value of the opportunities in the campaign, it's now showing, remember before it said 35,000? So now it's only taking 10% of that other opportunity. Now, by the way, that opportunity is not marked as 1. So over here where it says value of 1 opportunities in the campaign, it shows 0. If I go to back into that opportunity, which one was it? It was this one. If I go back into this opportunity and I mark it as closed and I mark it as closed 1, we're going to go back into that campaign, and I might have to do a refresh of the browser. Of course I do, because it's pulling from the cache of my browser. It's not a Salesforce issue, it's a browser issue. I probably have to do it a couple of times, do a hard refresh. So this is expected to get updated immediately to show that value of only that 10%. And I don't even remember what the keystrokes are, not to force a hard refresh. Where this is going to get, both of these values are going to get updated in order to indicate that how much the value is of that the opportunities that were won, and only the 10% that was associated. And again, if I look over here, oh, it's not showing me into this list view. All I have to do is update the list view in the page settings, update the list view to indicate the level of influence, and that would show me the level of influence that each one had. So this is how you can see the revenue that has come in from that particular campaign. Anyone have any questions on that?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
So did you set up a model or like, I'm confused as to this whole modeling thing, the campaign influence models and how they all kind of relate to each other. You just manually put in a percentage, but
yeah, I purposely did it manually. Let's go ahead and I'm going to show you. And for those who are not familiar with it, I'm going to pull up the screen where you can see what Barbara's talking about. I'm going into setup over here, and then I'm just going to search for the word influence. And over here, you can see where it says model settings. So here we have auto association settings. So this is allowing me, to automate over here. Basically, these are the only 3 areas where we can really customize anything out of the box as it relates to campaign influence. So over here, this is where we can set up, if we wanted to automate the linkage between an opportunity and the campaign, this is where we would do it. And this takes a while to really process, okay? It took me a long time to process this. It says over here, limit whether a campaign is influential by specifying the maximum number of days between a contact's association with the campaign and the opportunity's creation date, which means as follows. Let's make believe I invited Fred Flintstone to come to the Javits Center trade show. And I invited him today. And if I put in over here 15 days, that's the default. Keep in mind, I'm in the settings. These are the default settings across the entire organization, across all campaigns. So depending on what the settings are over here, if the default settings for the entire organization is 15 days, that means if today I am including, this has nothing to do with my interaction with Fred Flintstone. I am including Fred Flintstone in Salesforce. I am adding him into that particular campaign. And within 15 days, an opportunity gets created by anyone in the org, and they associate Fred Flintstone to that opportunity based on the settings over here. If I were to hit save, based on those settings, so long as it's within the 15-day window, Salesforce will automatically associate that campaign influence to that opportunity. That's what this does. Now, by the way, you can see over here, I can add additional criteria if I really want to do. Again, this takes a while to process. This is probably like the most powerful part. And keep in mind, this was created before Process Builder. Today, you could probably implement through Process Builder or Flow any custom stuff that's not available here. Go ahead, Deanne.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify, you have multiple campaigns that are active at the same time. So do they get added to multiple campaigns or the parent campaign? Or
any campaign where that contacts association was within X number of days.
okay.
So in theory, I could be adding Fred Flintstone to 3 different campaigns. I'm inviting him to the trade show, inviting him to a webinar, and adding him to the season's greetings campaign. And then one opportunity was created by a sales rep who knows nothing about any of those campaigns.
So what happens after the 15 days?
It's simply the automated linkage will not happen.
You'll have to manually do it.
You would have to do it manually, which is what I did before. By the way, when I first got to the screen a moment ago, this was cleared out. So in other words, I personally feel that the best practice is to not have any automation here, because I don't think there is any definition that you will have for everyone on your team, for every single campaign, every single initiative, every single sales rep, for every single opportunity. It's not going to happen. So my recommendation, leave this at 0. But if you want to do it, it's here and you can use it. I would manually have them link those opportunities to the campaign. Now, by the way, you might be thinking, how the hell am I going to get my sales reps to do that? Well, in most, particularly in larger organizations, there is a disconnect and there is friction between sales and marketing. Marketing is doing all kinds of really cool initiatives to touch base, to be in front of all of the customers and prospects. Sales basically says, I don't care what the hell you're doing marketing. It's my skills at doing sales. That's what's bringing in the money. I'm ignoring all of the stuff that you're doing, right? And then what happens as soon as marketing stops doing those things, marketing stops sending out emails, stops doing webinars, stops doing trade shows, everyone in sales is going to say, what the hell? Yo, you got to touch base with some of these people, right? So for marketing to justify what they're doing, turn to sales and say, excuse me, you want me to be able to justify the budget for doing another trade show, for doing this webinar again next month? Go ahead and update those freaking opportunities in order to link them to those campaigns, because otherwise there's no way in the world my boss is ever going to approve a budget to ever redo that initiative.
Good.
So that's my personal take on it. Anyone have any questions on that? There was a lot going on in the chat. We are 15 minutes over. There's a lot going on in the chat. Anything that you guys want to call out that I have not seen that I should have, or you expected to learn that I did not?
If you're up to it, can you go to the model settings?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not mean to avoid them. Yeah, so let's go to the model settings and let's go over here. And I completely forgot. Sorry. So let's go here, new attribution, so you can see it all clean. I will be the first to say that this is a little confusing. Hang on, what happened to my mouse froze for a second. This is a little confusing. So basically, it's showing over here how you want to set up. There's very limited options here.
Sure.
As you can see, not sure if there's a question coming in for me. As you can see over here, what I did was I simply created a second model where it's not locked. I firmly believe that reps, users, team members should be accountable.
We've had like half a dozen interviews already, but they've all been closed out. So there's no.
Let me take care of that. Okay, I just muted him. My personal take on it is to simply unlock the association, to unlock the affiliation between the opportunities and the campaigns. I believe that users should be accountable for their own data. That's my approach.
Can you unlock the default that comes out of the box? How did you get rid of the one?
All I did is over here. Watch this. I simply said, okay, let's make this the default, and let's make it active, and hit save. I reached the maximum. Hang on 1 second. I would have to. Well, basically, those are the steps that I did. It's not letting me save more than the second one. All I did was, and I'm in a developer org, so there are some limitations here also. I just went over here. I hit. I created a new one. I saved it as a default. I left this cleared out, and I hit save. That's it.
What's the purpose of the model?
This is all very confusing.
Okay, then don't worry about it then, too.
I would not worry about it. Yeah, and let's put it this way: if You've mastered everything about the native out-of-the-box campaign functionality and taught your team members how to link the opportunities that they're working on, how to link the contacts and leads that they need into the campaign as campaign members, how to update the campaign member statuses, how to link the opportunities to the campaign so that you can show ROI. You're in a really good place and you really don't need to worry about that. But this is the help screen where, and I'm going to put this in the chat window right now so you guys have access to it, because I dive a little bit deeper into this particular feature.
So you're saying, David, that you don't use models that much with your clients?
No, because what I do is the model, it's basically, I leave it as unlocked. That I want my users, they're always, 99% of the time, an organization is going to have different needs, different initiatives, different departments, different divisions, different product teams, different kinds of things that they're doing, and they want to leverage a different approach for each initiative.
Okay, so you kind of create something that might be used broadly, but leave it unlocked for them to manually change it.
And that's why also over here, I leave this at 0. I don't want the auto association.
Right. Okay, makes sense.
You're going to have users that are going to say, I don't know what the hell Salesforce is doing. There's some like phantoms in there that people are going and linking records together that I never did that. The data is crap. Therefore, let's rely on my Excel spreadsheet. So I'm trying to avoid that and flip the table by holding the users accountable for their own data.
But if they don't put anything in that percentage field, the model will take care of something, putting something somewhere, right?
Well, you can pull reports on your campaign influence report, and you can see all of those instances where it's 0, and you simply share that with the team members, the opportunity owner, as like, is this for real? Like, what? What's going on here? So by not having the automated association, they have to manually go into the opportunity that they're working on, and they have to manually select what campaign is it affiliated with. And when they do that, under campaign influence, it's going to automatically show them a field called percentage for influence. Populate it. That's simple. You want to make it required? Make it required.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
David, it doesn't look like Zoom lets you click through on that link or even copy that link that you pasted.
What?
It looks like it's disabled.
No, well, it shows us plain text, but it's there. You can just
you should be able to copy it and paste
it. I can't even highlight and copy it.
Okay, what I'm going to do is
I'm going to show the topic. That's fine.
I'm going to make a note for myself, and here I'll. Oh, by the way, how did I get there? Right here from the screen, I simply went and I clicked on the right-hand side, help for this page, which is enable customizable campaign influence. That's the page I was on, and I'll share the link with you guys afterwards. Is there anything else that anyone wanted me to cover? You expected me to cover, then I did not. Questions on anything that I talked about?
Hey, David, this is Srishti. The question that I have is not much generic. It's more specific to my use case, but this is related to campaign influence.
Okay.
So in my case, I had to merge 2 different Salesforce orgs. So my users from one org are now moved to the other. And they also wanted that opportunities, campaigns, and campaign influence data to be moved. So I've done that. I have done the data load for all those 3 objects. Now, the problem that I'm facing here is my users are not able to see the campaign influence records. So if they go ahead and create a new campaign influence, that is what they're able to see, but they're not able to see the old campaign influence records, which I just moved in. So, I mean, there's no campaign influence where...
They can't see the related list whatsoever is what you're saying.
No, related list they can see. They can create a campaign influence record. They cannot see the old data, or you can say that the one that I moved from their old org to the new.
Okay, so I'm guessing that that has something to do with the sharing settings that you have going across your entire org.
So they have access on campaigns. They have access on opportunities. I don't see campaign influence share object there. So I don't know how to give them access to the campaign share data there. So
Hang on
I'm
one
kind of
second.
stuck.
Let me look and see. And
Do the campaigns have to be active for them to see campaign influence?
that is actually a really good question. What I'm gonna do is, let's go back to my screen share. This is gonna be a learning experience for me too.
Isn't campaign influence like a paid thing? Like you have to give them a
permission set.
Sort of permission set,
Yes.
right? Maybe those people don't have a permission set.
No, but what I just heard is they can see the newer records. They could see the related list.
Oh, right.
But they don't see the legacy records. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, over here we have this particular campaign, and let's update this campaign to mark it as edit. Let's mark it as no longer active. And if we go back to any one of these, no, I'm still seeing it. So it's not. I was wondering whether or not that might have an impact. I have no idea. But no, that didn't do it. So yeah. I don't know.
Those which are already linked, well, you'll be able to still be able to see the inactive campaign. But if you have a new if you have another opportunity and hasn't been linked to the old campaign, that's no longer active, you won't be able to see it there.
But I think the use case that we just heard was that through bulk data migration, they are in fact in the system, they are in fact linked, but they're not visible to certain users.
That may be more of a user permission.
Yeah. So
yeah, so I'm kind of trying to learn about the sharing model on campaign influence, because as a system admin, I'm able to see those campaigns, but one of my users is not able to see it. So is it something to do with the model settings? So I'm not sure.
Are they a marketing user on the
Yes,
user?
They are.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. That's all is enabled.
You might want to check also their permission set, their what they're able to view, the record types they're able to view. So that's one of the things that could be there.
I'm guessing. You know what? Maybe it's because the campaign influence rolls up to the campaign. Actually, let's take a look over here at the schema. That's not where I meant to go. I'm like, what is that screen? That looks different. And what I want to see is campaign influence and clear all and just show me campaign and campaign influence and opportunity. And yeah, so I'm wondering whether or not the sharing settings on the campaign is what's dictating what they can see and not see. Because if I go back to, come on, and I have it as public full access, it might be private. Come on. It might be private, and maybe you have only certain campaigns are shared with those individuals. So it could be something like this is controlling it. I've never seen that type of use case, which is why I don't have an answer right off the top of my head.
Maybe system IDs didn't translate right, and you have older system IDs instead of your new org, so they're not completely linked. Oh, but you said that you can see them, it's just the other users can't see them. Never mind.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? Any other questions that you have for me? about campaign functionality that you expected to learn? All right, thank you everyone for joining. We're gonna wrap it up. If you think of anything afterwards, you can feel free to hit me up with any questions that you have. I'm going to post a recording to this on YouTube. I'll send you guys an email out once it's live on YouTube so you can watch the recording. I'll see you all next time.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much.
My
Learned
pleasure.
a lot. Appreciate it.
Well,
Thanks,
Bye.
David. Stay well.
bye-bye.
Thanks, David.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Thank you.